one, go.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Joining in here. Our malting operation is located on our family farm right here in Manhattan, Montana. You might be able to see a bit of it over my shoulder here as we look outside. Tried to find a place to set up, and I thought, well, we'll just set up out on the deck here. That's pretty decent. You might hear some road traffic going by. Anyway, we're wrapping up our potato harvest. Is another part of our farming operation that we do. So anyway, it's been a bit of a stressful time, and so um, anyway, wish I would have been able to put some nice slides together for you, but I haven't. So anyway, you're just going to hear me talk, and in the end, I hope you guys may have some questions. I'd feel much more comfortable in that setting of a back and forth conversation. But anyway, I'm going to tell you or try and explain a little bit about craft malt. I hope you may have heard that term thrown around a bit. Just like the craft brewing industry, there is an entire network of craft malters behind the that growing industry or growth that was in that industry. So anyway, um, I'm a member, or we're a member of the Craft Malt organization, Craft Malters Guild, which has been a huge benefit for us in that educational side of that, graduating from the Malt Academy through that. And just to give you a quick definition, craft malting is less than 10,000 ton production a year, owner operated. So we're not a large corporation and that sort of thing. So it's very small in that regards. And then just to be part of that organization, obviously being a member of the Craft Malting Guild. If you have questions about that, you can ask, and I can point you in the direction to find out more about that. But there are craft malters all over the U.S., like ourselves, who have a passion for this unique thing. Um, Part of that too, I think, in the craft malt is an understanding of the testing that goes on. Um, we don't just necessarily put out products nilly-willy that we don't have confidence in. And there's a number of three primary places that we work with. One is Canada's Malt Academy. Another one is Hartwick College in upstate New York. And another one right here in my backyard is Montana State University's Malt Quality Lab. So um, for us anyway, in the malt that we produce, every batch we run through to have a malt analysis done on it. So we just continue to build history on that and comparative. So at any given point in time, a brewer can ask, "Hey, Karl or Heather, what's going on with your malt? How does it compare to what I've been using?" And we've got numbers to back that up. Um, as well. So anyway, from that regards, so just I mean, those are just overall things that may help define an overarching craft malt. Um, I think within craft malting, just like brewing, you've got to have a passion for that. Um, Malting is like a 7 day a week process. It doesn't stop for the weekends. So you've certainly got to have that passion to see it through on a regular basis. Um, I think too, for me personally, and a lot of the people that I interact with in the craft malting industry is just that connection of putting together like where grain comes from, and putting that connection together with the brewer rather than it just being a commodity or that sort of thing that comes on a truck and goes in a bin, and with a phone call or an email that happens. Um, Putting that connection together, especially for myself being a farmer as well. I love the opportunity to get to talk to people about farming practices and how we can connect that together through malt, and so that as a brewer you have a better understanding of, where did this grain come from, and again, being the smallest that we are, we know exactly where that came from. I can tell you which field, um, anything specific about that in those regards too, and the preparation for that grain as well. Um, Another thing is it's a small business. It's local. It's knowing that you're supporting local people, your neighbors, and that as well. Um, for us, it's brewers buy grain from us, and those dollars stay right here in our community rather than going away to investors somewhere else that you may not know. Um, and it's another way, I think, to help sustain local farmers. In Montana, it's a little bit of a difference here. We're in probably a barley growing capital of the world, so to some degree, it's a bit like trying to differentiate yourself in on the Arctic selling ice when it's all around you everywhere. But um, I believe in this smallness of it, we can connect individual growers with the products that we're making. And in regards to that too, and I think I mentioned a bit about it as being, knowing exactly the source of the grain and what the crop looked like, and that I love nothing better than to have brewers come out and walk through the fields, um, and be able to drag your hands through grain and taste it and smell it, and knowing that, hey, this is going to be a beer or a whiskey that you might produce. That's fantastic to be able to do that, to just put that connection together on a very personal and tangible way is phenomenal. Some other areas I think in craft malting, as we go on here, um, grains being one of them. I think with the smallness of what we do, it allows us to experiment an awful lot more with grains and some just different areas, whether it be barley, wheat, rye, oats, corn, that we are doing, and a multitude of varieties within that. Within the craft malting organization, there's a lot of other things going on too. One of the things that always catches my eye, a gal named Twyla down in Colorado has a operation where they do gluten-free um, grains and malts there, and I think that's just really cool. I'm always interested in different kinds of grains and that, so it's cool to be able to see that. Um, but those opportunities out there as brewers, uh, those sorts of things are available out there. For us, for me especially, um, I love the idea of searching out. I'm kind of on this thing about currently historic grains, stuff that was done in the Gallatin Valley here, especially. I love the history in that, in the farming that we do. we irrigate grain that we use in our malting operation, and the irrigation water comes through a canal system that was put in here back in the day of the Manhattan Malting Company, and we're still using that same system, irrigation canals, today. I'm actually using it as we speak to irrigate some ground with, and it's kind of neat to see the history in that. So anyway, in that regards, I'm trying to resurrect some of the earliest barleys grown here in the valley, something like a Chevalier. Um, just really excites me to be able to do those sorts of things. We're delving into a project of have some family history of farming in the Volga River region of Russia. So we're doing some work on trying to revive some grains from that region, just simply from the family history side of things. Um, but in the craft malting thing, we're not tied to huge contracts with growers in that, so it allows us to do some of those things and experiment a bit more. Use some varieties that you might not hear of every day. Our mainstay grain variety is called Genie from Lima Grains, and we're pretty proud of how that grows. We're proud of how that produces, and we love the malt that that makes, and it is the mainstay in what we do. Um, so anyway, it allows us to do a lot of those things. Um, some other things as well. Um, Being in the craft or the small side of things allows us to learn and be creative and not be tied to large production capacity that we've got to meet day in day out. We do have that going on to some regards, but we do have the capacity and just uh, to sit back and talk and say, what do we want to try? What do we want to make? We hear a little bit of buzz from some brewers saying, hey, this type of malt or that type of malt. And well, let's create something that no one's ever seen before. So we get pretty excited and geeked about that. It does allow us in that regards to make some mistakes, and so we have produced some malt that wasn't fantastic and didn't meet our expectations. But being in a farming community here, I have neighbors with cattle who are more than welcome to take that. And I remember early on when we were starting out and not producing malt that met our standards anyway, and so we were moving it to one of my neighbors, and a couple weeks ago he said, geez, don't you ever have any malt for us anymore? And we're like, no, we try not to do that too much anymore. So anyway, but going off, um, but the creative side of things just really gets us excited in products and the innovation side of things. The latest thing we've been monkeying around with and having great success with is smoked uh, grains and malts, primarily smoked rye. And so just being able to do some of those creative things is just a blast, and keeps our creative juices flowing and passion for what we want to do growing in that regards as well. We also experiment. A couple things we've been on lately has just been some really deep colored Munichs in that regards as well. So those are just fun things to be able to, hey, say, let's take some time and do those, experiment with that, and see what we can develop in using the grains that we have and our systems to do that with. I think too, from the regards of what we do, there's a freshness to it. Um, and our batch sizes are small enough that we're turning those on a regular basis. So we're not sitting on inventory for a year or more. When we do that, you can know that you're getting something that probably was produced in 3 months ago or less. Um, and we like that. We like that, when our customers get that it's got the nice aroma and enzyme is intact and there yet. So we're like that. I think for me, and trying to fill up a lot of time with this is difficult, and it's not so great just sitting here. But anyway, I think as time goes on and in the business, and as I get a little more mature in age, I really like the ability to know who I'm working with in the products that we deal with. For myself as well, and the products that we buy, I really like that essence of saying, I don't want to just willy nilly buy something and put it in. I want to know the people behind it, and that, and a passion for that, and just having a positive effect and saying, okay, I want the actions that I do um, in that to affect people in a positive way and have a purpose behind it. Whether I choose to buy fertilizer in the farming operation, I want to know the people behind it, and I want to know who it affects and that sort of thing. And I think in the craft malting scene, certainly putting those connections together is phenomenal. I thought I'd talk a little bit about just from us and how we do things in regards to malting. Our particular operation is what we would call a pneumatic system, where we have steep tanks, and then we move our malt from steep to germination, and that germination happens in a vessel with an aerated floor underneath it. Um, and we have a computer control system that we use at that point that maintains our temperature there, and keep a great history of that, so we can always look back and say, if we want to tweak something and have an effect, we can really measure cause and effect in there. Um, so we move from steep to germination, and then we move out of germination and into a kiln. So those are all three separate stages in that. So we kiln, and then from there through a cleaning process as well. Um, Other craft malters do some things in a different way, and I think that lends to uniqueness as well. I have some acquaintances who do floor malting, uh, different process, and it would be new to us to try and attempt that. Um, and other systems as well, whether they be a drum type malting system, that. But it's always fun. We take a year. We have a craft malt gathering, and we get together, and it's a conference like we would normally be doing with the Brewers Association. But in doing so, we get to tour other people's craft malt houses, and it's always fun to see that and see the innovativeness of other people in creating malt, and how they've taken the time to do that, and a different process, and it's always fun to see how other people have tackled problems and that sort of thing. So anyway, with that, boy, I would love to entertain questions. If anyone has a question out, in regards to the craft malt or organization or that, well, I'd love to handle that. So I guess that kind of wraps up what little bit of presentation I had on this. It's not a huge thing, but presentation wise, anyway. I hope I've done some justice to that as well. But anyway, so I guess with that, if anyone has any questions, I'd love to entertain that. Go with that.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Karl. certainly appreciate this, and really appreciate you sharing that beautiful backdrop. It's wonderful, and I think one of the great takeaways from this is that concept of the local connections being such a vital part of this industry. So thank you. Yeah, if there's any questions, please feel free to make a comment. And if you'd like to come on screen and have more of a, ask your question live or more of a discussion, feel free. We have the time and can get you up here. I guess, Karl, question I have is, this is Jonathan with the Brewers Association.
Yeah.
What would you say is craft malt's biggest challenge at this time?
I think invariably when I talk to people about craft malt, and I I love the one-on-one conversation at a brewery and talking with that. And invariably, it boils down to price. And I think people, um, are used to what I often hear as well. How much does it cost? And well, I can get my bin filled for so many pennies a pound and that sort of thing. And so invariably, one of the biggest obstacles is price. In being small, we're not a large production facility, and so what we do has an inherent cost because we're not producing on such a huge scale. So I guess in that regards, I think that's always a big hurdle for people. And there's a couple things I like to think about when we talk about that is, I don't think we're comparing apples for apples in that regards. We're certainly a unique product, and I'm not saying that malt that's in a bin is a bad thing. I'm not. There's great beer made with that, so I'm not necessarily arguing that. But we are bringing a different product, and so I don't always think it's fair to compare price wise or price point on that. And again, I think it's that sense of um, knowing who you're dealing with, and I'd like to believe that the products that we produce are exceed those mass-produced products and quality and uniqueness. So that's probably the biggest hurdle that we run into. In Montana, the other hurdle I think that we run into is distance. Trying to connect with people on a regular basis around the state is hard because it's a big state to cover. And my first and foremost passion is to deal with people in Montana because that's where we are, and that's where we live, and that's where we farm. And trying to cover that distance and keep up with everyone is difficult, for sure.
Karl, are localized brewers, are there easy ways for them to come together to co-op on the transportation costs with you?
So far, we've been delivering malt, and we've looked at the cost of that, and we've basically been delivering malt at our expense. So when we quote a price to someone, it's a price delivered to them, and we've been able to pull that off at this point in time, and I'd love to continue to do it. Mainly just to see brewers and see people. I love the connection of being able to deliver malt, and here's us, here's the malt, and here's us. Um, yeah, it presents a. I mean, obviously, in my backyard here, it's much easier than Kalispell, where we're headed to next week. That sort of thing. Um, but currently, that's what we're doing. We've got some price arrangements with trucking companies, for a pallet rate, which I don't think is bad at all in that regards. Um, but if people are wanting to pull together and that sort of thing, we'd certainly entertain that as well. So.
Great. Well, Karl, I know you're a busy guy. Have a lot going on with the potato harvest. So are there any other questions right now from the audience?
We're fairly easy to reach as far as getting a hold of us. Um, there's a phone number listed, and I think people are always, when they call that I haven't spoken with, I answer the phone, hey, this is Karl. And I don't think they were expecting that. They're expecting something different. But our phone number's on our malt bag, and you can get a hold of us from our website, GallatinValleyMalt.com. In those regards too. So, if nothing else, just questions. I do get brewers who call and ask about our malt styles and that sort of thing. And, if nothing else, it's always fun to have a conversation with brewers about, different styles of malt and what we can do. And then there's some things we choose not to do as well. So, but anyway.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for attending this session. Just a reminder that we'll return at 1 p.m. For our final session of this virtual conference with the subject of Mind Your P's and Q's, Navigating the Paycheck Protection Plan Loan Forgiveness Process. So very valuable session for everyone. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Karl. Really appreciate you. And we'll see everyone back at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, thanks for your time, everyone.